Hello dear viewers, you are watching us live from RTD channel for the English News Edition, the major stories. The reform of the administration on the agenda has been presided over by the Prime Minister. In Nigeria, the economic situation remains fragile according to the IMF. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Margele, addressed today Sunday a message of congratulatory to the Emperor of Japan, His Majesty Akihito, whose country celebrates the anniversary of its National Day. In his message, the President of the Republic expressed wishes of health and happiness to the Emperor of Japan and wished more success, prosperity and fulfillment to the friendly people of Japan. The government and people of Djibouti join me in reaffirming their sympathy and friendship with the Japanese nation, wrote President Gille, who was delighted by the privileged nature of the cooperative and exchange relations that our country has with the Japanese state. The Republic of Djibouti is proud to be home to the first Japanese self-defense forces abroad, he said, before describing his country's determination to work continuously in favor of preservation and promotion of strategic partnerships that bind us to the Japanese friendly state in a significant number of areas. It should be noted that a similar message was also addressed to the Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe. This morning, the Prime Minister chairs the annual meeting of the National Commission in charge with the reform of the administration. Let's follow this video.
The Prime Minister chaired the annual meeting of the National Commission shared with the reform of the administration. An important meeting concerning the administrative reform took place this morning at the Primature under the legate of the Prime Minister Abdul Qadir Kamil. Several members of the government took part of this meeting, whom are the Minister of Justice, the Minister of Labor, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Health, the Minister of Communication, and the Minister of Interior, as well as the Minister of Education, the Minister of Women, the Deputy Minister of Decentralization, the State Secretary of the Social Affairs, the Secretary General of the Government, the Executive Secretary of the Administrative Reform. A speed process on different axes, from a review of the INAP to tax reform, moderning the taxes, governing the society service, and strengthening the government of public entrepreneurs and institutes. Today's meeting will bring together several members of the government, was aimed to trigger immediate follow-up with the recommendation made by the President of the Republic. This meeting was also attended as a bridge of all ministers concerned to better assume its role as a locomotive vector of competitiveness and performance.
The Minister of Labor, Hassan Idris Samiri, announced in his speech that the main objective of the reform of the administration is to make the administration a lever at the service of economic development. This reform goes through the ongoing training of state personnel, he said.
Permanente. En effet, la modernisation de l'administration. L'autre thème, en fonction des services.
As for the Prime Minister, Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed said that the objective of this reform is to strengthen the implementation of modern services to the citizens for the satisfaction and welfare of public users. Following their discussions yesterday with the Ministry of Budget in the committee room of the National Assembly, the parliamentarians met again on December 20 to continue the examination of draft law on the budget of the state for the financial year 2018. Chaired by the Honorable Sharmaki Musa Array, the working session extended the Committee on Social Development and Environmental Protection continued to Monday 25 December on the examination of the initial budget at the hearing of members of the government. As a reminder, as indicated in previous sessions, the government has put in place a drastic policy of rationalization of public expenditure. That said, resources have been directed to the priority social sectors and priority actions in line with the recommendations of the Priority Action Matrix, the government's strategy without omitting the permanent support given to the social sectors. In addition, the Finance Committee proceeded to the respective hearing the Minister of Communication in charge of Postal and Telecommunication, Abdi Yusuf Suge, who was accompanied by the senior executives of his department, namely Director of National Printing and the Director of the RTD. Also present were the Minister of Communication and Transport, Mr. Abdul Qadir Musahilim, and the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources, Yunus Ali Gedi. In this morning, at the People's Palace hosted a ceremony for the official launch of the mass distribution campaign of long-lasting insecticidal treated mosquito nets, MILDA, under the leadership of the Minister of Health, Dr. Jama Al-Mawki of the Ministry of Health, State Secretary for Social Affairs, Mrs. Muna Osman Aden. More details in this video.
This morning at the People's Palace, we host a ceremony for the official launch of the mass distribute company, the MILDA, under the leadership of the Minister of Health, Dr. Jama Al-Mawki, and the Secretary of State of Social Affairs, as well as the Mayor of Djibouti, Mrs. Fatuma, and some representatives hygiene committee of different neighborhoods in the capital. After reading the Holy Quran, the Mayor, Ms. Fatuma Usman Awale, immediately congratulated the Minister of Health for his great work. The State Secretary of Social Affairs, Ms. Mumina Usman, emphasized the importance of distributing the impregnated mosquitoes net in the fight against malaria. In his speech, the Minister of Health, Dr. Jama Al-Mawki, thanked all the health and hygiene committee of the neighborhoods for their tremendous mobilization, and the Minister that he was totally satisfied with the daily work of the sensibilization and advocacy who are doing those work in their neighborhoods.
For her part, the Secretary of State for Social Affairs, Mrs. Muna Osman Aden, reiterated the importance of mass distribution of impregnated mosquito nets in the malaria control strategy. Health Minister Dr. Jama Al-Mawki said he was completely satisfied with the daily outreach and advocacy work that these volunteers are doing in their neighborhoods in support of the activities of the Ministry of Health. On the morning of yesterday, the Minister of Delegate for Trade and Tourism, in the presence of Minister of Equipment and Transport, the Minister Delegate for Decentralization, the Prefect of Arta, the Commander of the Coast Guards, Secretary General of the Secretary of State for Youth and Sports, the Acting Secretary General of the Ministry of Trade and Tourism, the Director of Tourism and Director of Environment and Sustainable Development held a meeting on the protection of whale sharks. The objective of this meeting was to discuss ways and means to protect whale sharks, which are increasingly threatened by various factors, including the existence of military maneuvers in this area, increased presence of tourism, as well as accidents caused by boats. The Secretary General of the Secretary of State of Youth and Sports, Mohammed Ahmed Farah, had in this morning a working meeting with the members of the Saudi delegation, accompanied by the advisor of the President of the Republic on investment, Mr. Fahmi Ahmed Al-Haq. The two sides have thus reviewed the relations of friendship and cooperation existing between the two sister nations, and also discuss ways and means to consolidate the partnership between the Republic of Djibouti and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, especially in the sports field. They also review several projects whose implementation should better meet the expectation of sports in Djibouti. And these projects are aimed in particular at strengthening sports infrastructures, providing high performance equipment, and providing training to sports coaches in various disciplines. As part of the EOJ Foundation entitled to Housing, initiated by the Head of State, a meeting of support and recognition of the beneficiaries of the EOJ Housing Foundation was held yesterday morning at the headquarters of the Regional Council of Ali Sabih. The initiative for this meeting and raising awareness is the civil society of the region of Ali Sabih in close collaboration with the Regional Council and the Prefecture of the region. And let's recall that the EOG Foundation for Housing is a personal decision of the President of the Republic to help disadvantaged people to acquire decent housing. The EOG Foundation organizers distributed lifts with the bank account numbers for housing in the various branches of the banks of the national market, and the civic meeting for a cause as noble as the unwavering support of this foundation for housing, ended with the signing of a register by the participants testifying the personal commitment. On the international news, the International Monetary Fund (IMF) has said although Nigeria is said to have exited its recessions, the economy still remains largely vulnerable. It made this known at the conclusion of its 4-day mission to the country on Article 1V consultation with the federal government. Article 1V consultation is the assessment of the IMF member countries' macroeconomic, fiscal and monetary conditions with a view to identifying growth challenges as well as potential so as to address them and tap into the opportunities. Key findings in Nigeria during the mission identified huge opportunities in the country's power sector and business environment under the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. Equally, the mission said macroeconomic and structural reforms remain urgent to contain vulnerability and support sustainable private sector-led growth. The IMF staff team was led by Amin Mati, the resident representative and mission chief for Nigeria during the 2 weeks 2018 Article IV consultation, following which is issued the verdict on country's macroeconomic conditions. Well, here we close this edition. Thank you for joining us on RTD channel and have a good night.